Good afternoon. My name is Aubrey Goff, and today I'm going to be analyzing my childhood development. I was born on July 24th, 1983. I weighed 8 pounds, 10 ounces, born in Charleston, South Carolina. I had an older brother and an older sister. My first 3 years of physical development, I was pretty average in my weight and height. But when it came to my physical ability and my physical development, my mother and my aunt told me that I was very ahead for my age. I began crawling at 4 months, climbing out of my crib at 6 months, and walking at 9 months. My psychosocial development, I was told I was a very happy baby. I didn't cry very much. I was a loving baby and would show affection to those around me. I responded well to change, and I smiled easily. My mom was actually a stay-at-home mom, and I attribute a lot of my security to the fact that my everyday life is pretty much the same, and my mom was always there. And when there was a change, I didn't stress about it because I had never been through anything very traumatic. My cognitive development, my first word was dada at 6 months. I would interact with others and babble, and I was very in love with my older brother, who I would call Bubba. My physical development in my early childhood, I was very athletic. I began riding a bike without training wheels at age 4. I was told that I played outside all the time, and just once again, very ahead for my age when it came to my physical abilities. I had a very stocky kind of athletic build. Cognitive development, I love to color and draw. I could write my name at an early age. I was able to put puzzles together quickly and enjoyed that sort of mind to paper to hand kind of motion. My early childhood psychosocial skills, I would say that I had a positive self-concept. I thought I wanted to be a grocery store clerk when I grew up. I thought, that was really cool. I'd been to the store several times with my mother a week, and, I would watch the cashier check out the groceries, and I decided that that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I actually remember laying in my bed at night. I had some sheets that had shapes on it, and I would pretend that the shapes were the button on a on a cash register, and I would sit there and pretend like I was working at a grocery store. My middle childhood physical development, this is when I began to play organized sports, basketball and softball. This is me right here, number 5, and this is actually my dad who coached me. I was a master rollerblader. I loved to play outside and climb trees, and actually I found, even though I was the younger of the 3 children, that I was really more advanced when it came to physical development than both my brother and my sister. My sister was extremely uncoordinated, and my brother was just a little bit slower when it came to physical development. When it came to cognitive stuff, putting things together, he would blow me out of the water. But when it came to physical development, I seemed to be ahead on this particular type of development. In middle school, I made good grades in schools. In my middle childhood cognitive development, I made good grades in schools. In my I would say probably about 4th grade, 3rd grade, I had to have speech. I had a couple of cognitive issues with with my speech and pronunciation. I would say it was coming over here to psychosocial development. I made friends easily. I was not shy. I would talk to strangers. I would argue easily with my brother and sister, which is where I learned a lot about conflict resolution through my relationship with them. I also learned about displacement when my younger brother was born when I was 9 years old, removing me from the baby seat and him becoming the baby after I'd been the baby for 9 years. I think a lot of my security had to do with my home environment and my family relationships. I had a very healthy, safe home. But during this age, I began to spend less time at home and less time with my parents than I had in my early childhood. And I began to form relationships with other people. However, my relationship with my family, especially my parents, continued to be important to me. And then on to adolescence. This is actually a picture of my little brother and I. We were at the Tennessee Aquarium here. My psychosocial development, this is definitely where I began to have mood swings. I always thought I was right. I guess I was what you would call a late bloomer. I actually didn't come into puberty until probably my freshman year of high school. I had a lot of friends. I was very into, I wanted to be accepted by my peers, and I enjoyed being with my friends. I had a little bit of a temper during this period, but I also found myself becoming very sympathetic to people around me and their situations. I could, at this age, I began to, if I saw somebody being picked on, I would connect with that, and I would feel for them. I definitely had some issues with my parents during this age, and I attribute most of that to my mouth and always having to get the last word in. This is the adolescence, my physical development and health. I was actually coming up into high school in my late years of middle school. I was very skinny, and I wasn't developing like the other girls. And so my mom actually made me start drinking whole milk to help me gain weight because the doctor thought that would help me, develop or whatever. I was very healthy and active. I played sports in school, basketball, softball, cross country, and track. I always seemed to be, just very into athletics and sports. My adolescent cognitive development, I made good grades, but it took hard work. I didn't just pick it up. Like I mentioned before, my brother was very good at putting puzzles and things together and Legos, and when we were younger, same thing here, I would have to work hard to make my good grades. I began to question things more instead of just accepting what people had told me. I would want to find things out for myself. I loved to debate with my teachers and or parents or anyone, even if I shared the same opinion. I would still, play the devil's advocate and want to debate with them. And really it was because I was beginning to understand that there was more than one view or more than one opinion. And even though if I agreed with them, I wanted to make sure they knew the other side. So this is me. This is my childhood and my development. And it's been a bumpy path to get across the water here, but here I am. Thanks.